Good afternoon all. Welcome back to a sunny Carrow Road where, as you can see, it has finished Norwich City 1, Leicester City 2. And that only just about tells part of the story, really. Of course, that is the end result. That's all that matters. But there was a great deal of context to it, a lot of positives to take for Norwich today. And it felt like they got a foothold in this season, this daunting start to the campaign, which we always knew, particularly up to this point, up to the September international break, it was always going to be tough. And it has been 3 defeats. It has been 9 conceded. They get their first goal today, Teemu Pukki from the penalty spot, getting his 68th goal in Norwich colours. And that will no doubt have been a real weight off his shoulders. But the heartbreak really for Norwich and the full house that was here again today was a disallowed goal in the 80th minute. Kenny McLean header from a Milot Rashica corner. The place went absolutely bonkers, but there's VAR. Norwich had felt the benefits of it for getting the penalty in the first half, and to be fair, the decision was correct. It turns out that Todd Cantwell was just offside, and we're talking a few inches. That's all the difference it was. But he was in front of Kasper Schmeichel. He was deemed as being interfering with the goalkeeper, and that means that he was offside. If he'd have been to Schmeichel's left or Schmeichel's right, then they probably would have got away with it because he wouldn't have been interfering with play. But it was blocking the keeper's line of sight is basically how it will go down, which is really unfortunate and was a real blow. But I felt the moment which summed it up best really here today was Adam Eder firing just wide in the 5th minute of injury time. Brilliant play from Max Aarons, who was my man of the match today. I thought he was outstanding. He's the one player that I'll give an 8 in my ratings to. I thought he was just a real presence, really drove forward. But Eder fired it just wide, and there was a real everybody sighed in disappointment, and then the whole stadium roared and applauded and just were really appreciative of the effort that Norwich have put in today. They got a foothold in this season. They really worked Leicester hard. Leicester, who have got a bit of a defensive injury crisis, it should be said, but they were very, very much in this game. This was a proper match, a proper battle, and a Premier League encounter played at real intensity, some good and some bad from both teams throughout the game. Lots of entertainment, but a proper high intensity match that we could all enjoy with a good atmosphere. I thought the fans were excellent throughout, to be honest. They really drove the team on and really appreciated a lot of what they saw. But of course they have lost 2-1. There is a lot to work on. We all know that. We all knew that was going to be the case, whatever happened here today, really. And as has been the theme really of recent weeks, I think once again, you don't want to be fixating too much on Billy Gilmour as a 20-year-old, do you? You don't want to be laying the blame on him for this defeat, and you certainly can't blame the defeat squarely on him, but that doesn't seem to be working with him as that deeper midfielder. He hasn't got the engine and the mobility of Oliver Skipp. He isn't that type of player. It just doesn't seem, and it feels like today at points his confidence really dipped and he wasn't sure where he was supposed to be. There were a few bad moments for him where he hadn't tracked his man or he'd given the ball away. There were a few good moments in there. You know, he can ping a pass. There's no doubt about that. He's got an eye for a pass. It feels like it may be just too much responsibility for him at this level. As we've spoken about earlier in the season already, Ollie Skipp had a little bit of a shaky start in the Championship, didn't he, at a similar age, and then he flourished. This is even more difficult for Gilmour. He's trying to do it in the Premier League against Liverpool, Manchester City and Leicester. So it feels like that isn't sensible for Norwich to persevere with that. I would have rather seen Kenny McLean there, or maybe even Jacob Sorensen, but we will have to see what happens in these final days of the transfer window. The deadline is Tuesday night at 11 p.m. That's how long Stuart Webber has got to try and get that extra midfielder in. It sounds like they're still working to get Matthias Norman from FC Rostov. It doesn't sound like the William Carvalho link is going to be one to be dwelling on too much, but Norman, we shall see how things develop in the next few days. Onel Hernandez is on his way to Middlesbrough, was having a medical today and is due to spend the season on loan there. That follows Jordan Hugill going on loan to West Brom, Tom Tribal's contract being cancelled. That sounds like they're freeing up wages to really try and get that one big signing over the line before deadline. And that might mean that they end up having to sacrifice getting another centre back in as well, or just looking at a free agent or whatever. But I think we can all agree that central defence midfield role is the priority, and would have made a big difference in this game. What proved to be the winner in the end, Kelechi Iheanacho skips past Gilmour pretty much like he isn't there. He's gone out wide to try and battle for possession and hasn't done so. He's just lacking that grit at the moment. It's a shame. He's probably he has got more in the tank. That's pretty obvious. He's a very talented young man, but it feels like that's too much weight on his shoulders at the moment. So we'll see how that develops. Daniel Farke has got history with emerging from international breaks with an improved plan and having worked really well with the players, doesn't he? So we shall see. It is a bottom of the table clash that awaits when we get to the other side of the international break, because Arsenal are keeping Norwich off the bottom of the Premier League. They also lost 5-0 at Manchester City today, which was kind of nice for Norwich fans, wasn't it? Took the heat out of that result to an extent, but because Norwich have scored a goal, they are not bottom. Arsenal haven't scored, so I don't think we want to be reading too much into that before we pitch up at the Emirates in a couple of weeks. Well, actually, I won't be there because I'm at a wedding, but Paddy and Connor will be there, of course. And you can't all of a sudden think that Arsenal are in relegation trouble. They, of course, are not. They will start picking up points. They've got far too much talent, far too much ability in that squad. And I'd be very surprised if they did sack Mikel Arteta when they've got one of the newly promoted teams at home up next. And just looking at it from an outside view as a neutral, I don't see another managerial change as being helpful for Arsenal at the moment either. I think Arteta is working on something, and they probably should keep faith with him. But that is going to be a big game. The bigger one is Watford at home here. If Norwich play like they did today against Watford and against the teams seen as their more direct rivals, you would have a lot of hope that they are going to pick up points and that they are going to start building some confidence and momentum, because there was a lot to enjoy today, along with some bad. And Brandon Williams had a horrible start to the game. 8th minute, he was one of the 2 changes made by Daniel. He brought Kenny McLean in for Lucas Rupp, Williams in for Yanulis at left back. Christos Scholas wasn't involved, those little calf issues, failed a late fitness test, so wasn't involved, but hopefully that's nothing major, which is a shame because he would have been a real asset to have been involved today. But Rashica, certainly in the second half, really did well. He really sort of found his groove a little bit and was quite a dangerous customer for Leicester to deal with. So the stats, Norwich had 45% of possession, 14 shots, 4 of them were on target to Leicester's 9, and 3 on target, and both had 9 corners each. Ratings, as I mentioned earlier, Max Aarons gets my man of the match. I'll give him an 8. Rashica and Ben Gibson, I'll give them both a 7. I thought they both got through a lot of good work. Campbell maybe not far away, bit of bad luck really with the goal. We're talking inches that he was adjudged to have been offside in front of Kasper Schmeichel. Tim Krul, who was up for the corners at the end as Norwich threw the kitchen sink at it, and it was a great atmosphere. As I said, the crowd really felt like Norwich gave it a good go to try and find that second equaliser. But everyone else basically a 6. But I think Gilmour and probably Williams, for the bad things that he did today, have both got to be 5s, because Williams did have a chance to get out to Albrighton and thwart the shot, which won it, which was a lovely shot, but probably didn't do enough to make sure that Albrighton didn't get that shot away. And as I say, right at the start, at the 8th minute, just I don't know what he did. He got himself in a real muddle. One of those moments, the sort of classic line, you want the ground to open up and swallow you, and he just gave the ball away. It was horrible. Ricardo Pereira charged past Ben Gibson, pulled it back to Jamie Vardy, who was totally unmarked. There wasn't a Gilmour or a McLean getting back goal side in time. Gilmour was a few yards behind him, basically, as he finished nicely into the top left corner. And that is what we're talking about, isn't it? In terms of there's not enough defensive protection, there's not enough shielding from the midfield against these big teams. It can't be forgotten. Leicester won the FA Cup last season. They finished 5th. They very nearly qualified for the Champions League again. They were in the Europa League. They were a good team, and they've beaten Norwich today without some very important players for them and a real defensive injury crisis. So yeah, that's the ratings. As I say, just to go through the game very quickly, that opening moment which really sort of punctured the balloon from the mistake from Williams, that was in the 8th minute when Jamie Vardy gave Leicester the lead. There were moments in the first half that you could cling to, certainly, but it was the first half which was more worrying. McLean and Lys Malou both had shots saved by Schmeichel. The latter of those two from Lys Malou was a really fine save from Schmeichel, getting down to his right. Good diving at full stretch. Krul did very well, Sidonai. Jamie Vardy spreading himself after Grant Hanley had been a bit unfortunate after making one good interception, but he just couldn't keep hold of the ball, and Vardy nicked in. But Krul was there and then got a little bit of a fortunate bounce to be able to claim the loose ball. And then Norwich were given a route back into the game by a ridiculous challenge from Soyuncu, the Leicester defender, who just dived in on Lys Malou in the right channel in the box. Didn't really need to. He'd driven him wide. Aarons had played the ball in behind, and at best, Lys Malou was probably going to have an unlikely shot or squeeze a across him. But Soyuncu dives in, clips him, gets a little bit of the ball at the end of the motion, but nowhere near enough. VAR took ages to make the decision. I don't really know why. Eventually, the referee went and had a look at the screen and then gave it. But from one replay, we had a look at it and said, well, that's a clear penalty. So I'm not sure why that took them so long. Pukki tucks it away. Schmeichel goes to his right. Pukki fires into the bottom right corner. So Schmeichel guessing the wrong way. And that's his 68th goal for Norwich. A big moment for him. And certainly after that goal, there was a lot of good pressing from Pukki. He worked his socks off until he was replaced by Josh Sargent in the, what was that, 73rd minute. The double substitution was when Daniel reacted. Early stages of the second half, Cantwell fired just over, Lys Malou just wide. A lovely cross from Max Aarons, again darted forward and picked out Pukki. We could all see him where we were sat up in the press box. Pukki just peeled away and was in space, and Max had to pick out the perfect ball, and he pretty much did. He picked out Pukki at the back post, and he just couldn't get enough power on the header as he looped it towards Schmeichel, and couldn't get the equaliser at that point. Yuri Tielemans smashed a shot which Krul may have had covered, but it only just flew over his top left corner. That was a good chance for Leicester. And then 76th minute is when they reclaim the lead, as I described earlier. Iheanacho down the left, past Gilmour, and then McLean and Maddison sort of clash. McLean takes Maddison out, essentially. The ball comes through to Albrighton, and he just sizes up Brandon Williams and lashes a really, really good shot, to be fair, curling away from Krul into the bottom left corner. Didn't give Tim much chance at all in the goal, really, and it was a bit of class, really, from an experienced Premier League player. The big moment, as I described earlier, 80th minute, when VAR intercepted just before the second Leicester goal. Daniel had made that double change. It was Rupp and Sargent coming on for Pukki, and Lys Malou, who was on a yellow card from early in the game for a sort of late tackle on Maddison. 3 minutes later, they score. Daniel then reacts again, chucks Adam Eder on to go for it just as Norwich are about to take a corner down just over my shoulder here. Lovely from Rashica. McLean powers it in, but then VAR intervenes, and it turns out Cantwell was offside and interfering. Norwich, as I say, threw the kitchen sink at it. Grant Hanley went up as Tim Krul pumped a free kick into the box and managed to, I guess just instinctively, it was a defensive header backwards out of the box, and Leicester broke through Vardy. Cantwell desperately charging back, couldn't catch up with him. Eventually Norwich scrambled numbers back, and Iheanacho has an air shot, which is a bit of luck, and then manages to recover the ball and fires just wide. So that was a let-off. That could have been 3-1. And then Norwich just had that one last push, Krul up for corners. Rashica delivering some good corners as well, actually really getting them into the danger zone. And as I described at the top of the video, Aarons bursts forward. Eder makes the run to the near post, and he just powers it past the near post, a few yards wide, but right in front of the Barclay. And everybody, after a sigh of disappointment, just really gave the team a real roar and a real applause, and that was repeated again at full time. I think for anybody that was here today, they will feel that Norwich were they certainly did themselves no harm in terms of the overall season today. They gave themselves a lot to build upon. They did give themselves some foundations. They can just cut out the mistakes. You know, the Williams error was a really strange one. He probably won't do it again all season. I'm not sure what happened really, but that really did put them on the back foot early doors. And if things like that don't happen, then they are in with a chance. But until they get to the games against more direct rivals, we can't really know, because if they're still making those mistakes against Watford and against Brighton and whoever there are to come, then they are going to be in trouble, aren't they? But an entertaining day, and hopefully we don't need to head into the international break in sort of feeling too down in the dumps. I haven't heard any of the reaction just yet. I'll go and catch up with that now, but we've got 2 weeks to think about things. There's a lot of the players going away on international duty before that Arsenal game, so we'll have plenty of time to sort of analyse this and see what we can learn from it, what Norwich can do going forward. But as I said, that defensive midfield position feels like the last piece of the jigsaw potentially at the moment to certainly ensure that Norwich are competitive at the very least. So we'll have plenty more for you in the next few days. We're going to record the latest Pinkham podcast before we head home this evening. Pinkham.com, of course, for all the reaction and analysis. We'll have our deadline day live blog as usual, which is on Tuesday, and we'll be across all those transfer issues. We think Onel Hernandez's loan will probably be confirmed on Sunday, so watch out for that. There may be a few other bits and pieces that we're not expecting, but I don't think it's going to be a quiet few days, so keep it locked on Pinkham.com. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the game in the comments below, and we'll catch up with you very soon.